This module is one in a series of modules for guideline development and the grade process. My name is Nancy Santesso, and this module provides an overview of the grade approach in guideline development. In another module, we reviewed the guideline process from priority setting to updating the guideline and the involvement of the various groups. Many of you may be interested in using the grade approach in this process. The grade approach provides methods and tools primarily for how to conduct the steps of developing the PICO to writing the recommendations. Other members of the working group are also developing methods for handling conflicts of interest, dissemination, and group process. But in this module, we will briefly describe the steps from generating questions to making recommendations. This diagram of the grade approach to guideline development may seem overwhelming at first. It, however, provides important detail about the critical steps that guideline developers should take. GRADE provides methods and tools for two major processes of the guideline development. The top section shows the steps to synthesize the evidence. The bottom section, at the bottom of the slide, describes making of recommendations or decisions. Also to note in the GRADE approach is the guideline panel, who sits at the center of the process, who provides input and develops the recommendations. First, let's start with the process of synthesizing the evidence. Once a guideline panel has decided on the priority topic that will be covered in the guideline, say for example, treatment of precancerous cervical lesions, the panel will need to determine the specific questions or recommendations that will be addressed in the guideline. The guideline panel will usually identify many questions and will typically need to prioritize which questions should be covered. Before searching for and synthesizing the evidence, it is important to really clarify the question. This is done by formatting the question in a PICO, meaning the question should ask about an intervention compared to another intervention, for whom and with what effect. So the P for population is the who, I is for intervention, C is for comparison, and O is for the outcomes or effects. For example, should treatment A or B be used in women aged 30 to 55 to treat precancerous cervical lesions? Because there may be evidence for a wide variety of benefits and harms of treatments, it is often necessary to restrict the question to outcomes that are critical to the decision-making process. In the case of treatments for precancerous cervical lesions, a critical outcome could be recurrence of the lesion, but an outcome would be less important to consider might be slight discomfort during the treatment. Once the evidence has been synthesized for each of the outcomes, it is important in the GRADE approach to clearly present the evidence. The evidence is summarized in evidence profiles or summary findings tables, which can be created using the software specifically in GRADE, the GDT. Also important in the GRADE approach is to evaluate the quality of the evidence across each outcome. In this way, a guideline panel would know that there may be a 5% greater chance that a lesion will occur after treatment A versus treatment B, but we have very low confidence in that effect because the quality of the evidence for that outcome is very low. When using the GRADE approach, the quality of the evidence is assessed by considering 8 factors. The evidence is either downgraded from high to very low because of 5 factors: risk of bias, inconsistency, indirectness, imprecision, and publication bias. Or the evidence can be upgraded to large effects, dose response, or opposing bias and confounders. At the end of the process, the evidence for each outcome is presented along with the quality of that evidence. When the evidence has been synthesized for all of the benefits and harms of treatments and for the other consequences, including resource use, patient values and preferences, and other issues, the panel will review the evidence and make recommendations. As indicated in the figure, they will need to balance all of the consequences in order to decide whether a recommendation is for or against the use of an intervention and whether the recommendation is strong or weak. GRADE has developed a variety of tools to help guideline panelists to work through the decision and consider all of the consequences. One tool is called the Evidence to Decision Framework. It can also be produced using the GRADE software. the GDT. In addition, GRADE provides panelists with options about how to word recommendations clearly in the guideline document. For example, the panel can use the word recommends for strong recommendations or use the word suggest for weak recommendations. Taken together, this diagram represents the basic steps of the GRADE approach. It is a rigorous process which provides methods and tools for evidence synthesis and for making recommendations. It also emphasizes that there needs to be a close relationship between guideline panels and all of these processes. If you would like more information, you can visit the GRADE Working Group website, which has links to the publications about GRADE and a list of workshops that are available to learn more about GRADE and the guideline process. You can also use the guideline development tool, the GRADE software, previously called GRADE Pro. In that software is a comprehensive help file describing GRADE. And if you have questions specific to GRADE, please contact us at support@GRADE Pro. We are happy to help.